nightly program on CNN to help make immigration one of the most discussed issues of the 2008 campaign. Dobbs describes himself as an independent populist. He titled his latest book, Independence Day, Awakening the American Spirit. His previous book was titled War on the Middle Class, How the Government, Big Business, and Special Interest Groups Are Waging War on the American Dream and How to Fight Back.
Lou Dobbs also has his detractors, especially when it comes to immigration. He's been called the most influential spokesperson for the anti-immigration movement, and he's been accused of being a fearmonger who vilifies immigrants and promotes xenophobia. But Lou Dobbs' message has struck a chord with many viewers. Lou Dobbs Tonight is the second most watched program on CNN, and there's even talk that Dobbs might make a possible run for the White House. Wall Street Journal columnist John Fund reported last month friends of Dobbs say he's seriously contemplating running for president as an independent. Lou Dobbs joins us today in our Firehouse studio for the hour. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Great to be with you.
Are you running?
Absolutely not. It's the last thing I could imagine. If I were a candidate, I can assure both of you that it would be the candidate of last resort in this country. That's about 300 million people in line ahead of me.
Well, you've written the book Independence Day. That's with a TS at the end of Independence. What is the main thesis of this book?
The main thesis is that both political parties, the Republican Party, Democratic Party, have failed the American people, have, rather than held up our essential fundamental national values as the standard to which all of our public policies should repair, has submerged them in trivia, wedge issues, and partisan blather and nonsense that is ultimately destructive to the American dream.
What do you think are the most important issues today?
The most important issue in this country today is representation of the American people in Washington, D.C., which is being denied right now by corporate America, special interests, group and identity politics that are submerging the will of the majority in this country. The fundamental tenet of any democracy is representation of the will of the majority, and that is being denied through elitists in both business and government and politics. And we have to fundamentally examine where we are and where we want to be going over the course of this next century. And that is not happening, not in the presidential campaigns of both parties. It's not happening in Washington, D.C., even though we have a government in which the Democratic Party is leading the Congress and the Republican Party the White House.
Now, Lou, you've been well known for years now, especially dealing with the issue of American corporations exporting jobs and criticizing that whole process of exporting American jobs overseas. But also the criticism that, as I've seen it, is oftentimes does not deal with the impact so much of what this globalization on those countries themselves. In other words, you criticize NAFTA for sending so many jobs overseas, but not with the impact so much that it's having on Mexico and on these other countries that are the other end of this free trade.
Well, that may be because I'm a television journalist, limited in my intellect as well as my time.
On this show, we don't have commercials, so we have a lot of time to get into the issues.
The reality is that, of course, NAFTA is, in my judgment, at least deleterious to the interests of the Mexican people and to the state of Mexico. One only has to look at empty villages in particularly southern Mexico to examine the impact of the agricultural policies within NAFTA. One only has to look at the maquiladoras across northern Mexico to see the impact on a society that is already 50% impoverished, education levels still where they were 30 years ago in Mexico. But my perspective is an American one, and I won't presume to speak for Mexico as Felipe Calderon does presume to speak to the United States for Americans and American policy. The reality is that NAFTA doesn't work for this country. It doesn't work for Mexico. But I am not one of those people, as Amy was talking about my detractors. The suggestion I'm anti-immigrant, for example, is absurd. I would support an increase in lawful immigration and have said so repeatedly and have no problem whatsoever with current levels of immigration, which, by the way, are the highest levels of immigration in the world. In fact, more than the rest of the world combined. We bring in more than 2 million people. But the issue is one that the United States does not have a foreign policy toward Mexico. We're paternalistic and condescending toward Mexico in our dealings with Mexico, both corporately and politically. It's time for that to change.
In the beginning of the broadcast, we played a clip of you talking about various concerns that you have around immigrants. The last part of that clip, and maybe we can play it
illegal
again.
Immigrants, if I may, Amy.
Illegal
Only
immigrants.
Illegal immigrants.
Maybe we can play a last part of this clip that we played, just to go through it again. We'll see if our folks have that clip ready. And this is the clip that we played in the billboard.
Well, I can recall what was said if it's at all helpful. I said that according to a study, I didn't use the attribution, but according to a study that Jorge Barjas at Harvard University had completed, that the cost of excess immigration into this country amounts to $200 billion a year in wages. That the cost of incarceration, medical care, social services approximates $50 billion in this country per year. And the reality is that about a third of the crimes that are of those in state prisons, federal prisons, excuse me, are of those who are in this country illegally.
Let's play it, and then let's talk about it.
Let's say the number is 11 million, although some studies put the number as high as 20 million illegal aliens in this country. That not only amounts to a shift of 6 to 10 congressional seats among the states based on the population of illegal immigration. The fact is, those illegal aliens are costing our economy $200 billion in depressed wages for working Americans. It is costing $50 billion a year in social and medical costs. And it's costing us, no one knows precisely how much, to incarcerate what is about a third of our prison population who are illegal aliens.
So, Lou, you said a third of the prison population are illegal aliens. The fact is, it's something like 6% of prisoners in this country are non-citizens, not even illegal, just non-citizens, and then a percentage of that would not be documented. So
well, it's actually 20, I think it's 26% in federal prison.
But you said of all prisoners.
I said about, yes, but I misspoke without question. I was referring to federal prisoners.
But you didn't say that, and so it leaves people with the impression.
I just explained it to you.
But you have a very large audience.
I have a very large audience and a very bright audience.
And you told them that a third of the population of this country are illegal immigrants. 6%, which is under the population of immigrants in this country of prisoners.
In state prisons.
No, are immigrants.
In state prisons.
No, 6% overall are immigrants. You said 30%
well,
are
I think we've
illegal.
established, we could sit here and say this all day, Amy. The fact is, the number is 26% in federal prisons. That's what I was referring to. I misspoke when I said prisons. I was referring to the federal prisons because that's the federal crime, immigration.
Have you made a correction on your show to say that
sure we have.
30%?
Absolutely.
We didn't.
Do you know how many reports we've done on illegal immigration in this country?
Yes, many.
Oh, I mean, my God.
Yeah, but I'd like to get into the into this issue. I mean, aside from the fact that the GAO report...
Excuse me, just one second.
Sure.
I mean, what if I were to sit here and just hound you because you said I was anti-immigrant, when I'm, point of fact, I'm anti-illegal immigrant, and it's absolutely a matter of fact. We could quarrel over the terminology if you want, but why should people of good faith and intelligence sit there and be so
we agree.
about
We agree on that, but this is precisely the lumping of illegal or undocumented immigrants and legal immigrants in one category. That's a problem. Because, for instance,
I agree with you.
The total percentage of the non-citizen population of the United States right now is about 35 million, 12%.